now. And I just want to welcome everyone. Thanks for everyone for taking time out of their day to join us and have a little quick chat about what the fall is going to look like. Before I start there, I would like to welcome PHE Canada. Ellen Long is going to support us in this Zoom call. I'd like to thank a few of the board members that are here today. So Lyndon Proctor is here, Amanda Corneg is here, Mel and Julie and Reg. I think there's a few more that'll be joining us that'll just be a little bit late. So I'm going to, oh, and here's Jared, who is also a board member. So I'm going to turn it over to Reg to officially welcome everyone.
Good morning, everyone. And we would like to start this meeting in a respectful way by recognizing the land we are all situated on across our beautiful province. We are hosting today's meeting on treaty territory situated all across Saskatchewan. Whether you are gathering with us today in the same territory or from a different location, let us all take this opportunity to recognize and be grateful for the many First Nations, Métis, and Inuit peoples whose footsteps have marked these lands for generations. Let us also give thanks to the elders and knowledge keepers, those with us today and those who are no longer with us, for their stewardship and teachings. And may we all continue to walk towards truth and reconciliation together. Also at this time, I'd like to acknowledge that it is National Indigenous History Month, and we recently celebrated this past Sunday on June 21st, National Indigenous Peoples Day. So let us be thankful and kind to each other as we move forward. Thank you.
Thanks, Reg. We have just a couple questions that we're going to throw out there, and hopefully that we can have a little discussion about. I know that everyone wants to know what has happened or what is coming for September, but I thought we'd start off the meeting by addressing maybe what has worked well during this COVID experience, maybe a success or something that you have brought out, your use of technology that you didn't know you could do. Going to pick on Jared and his radio program that he hosted weekly with his school. Just something that was positive maybe about what this time has brought for you. So does anyone feel like sharing during this time?
I can start. Just two observations sort of from a provincial perspective. And the first one is just sort of a huge uptake with our students playing with their parents or family members. And that's been very visible lots of times in all settings, but especially in urban settings where kids are playing with their parents. And that's been a big uptake. And I don't know if you've all been able to see the participation national report card that came out, in physical education with a D-, but their focus this year is on, and it's, I guess, very timely, but trying to get our students and kids to play with their parents, and that parent engagement is a big part of enhancing physical education and physical activity and physical literacy. So that's been one uptake. The second one that I've noticed from teachers that have talked to me, physical education teachers, is that with the platform that most people are using right now, some of our most maybe underserved or at-risk kids in physical education when we were in it when they were actually in school, maybe disengaged when we were physically together before schools closed, some of those students have really excelled in an individual and home environment with the online platform. Maybe they don't feel the peer pressure, and I'm not sure what the reasons are for that, but there has been an uptake with some of our kids that were disengaged in a physical context, and I guess a physical way of teaching, and now have actually kind of embraced their home learning programs or their family programs that they're using. So that's just two observations. So.
Thanks, Reg. Anyone else? Oh, Jared, you're going to share?
Yeah, I'll share. I think as far as for us in Saskatoon, one of the benefits I see we've always had this network of elementary phys ed teachers have that chance to get together, but I think it's allowed us to kind of expand that, and we've all kind of through this time have come a little bit more together, sharing resources in this time of need. And it's kind of forced the hand of some of the people who were not like feeling comfortable with this online piece to help with, I guess, extending or improving our network so that we're all using that more and helping out each other more. So I felt like it kind of brought that group for us anyways together more in order to hopefully improve our phys ed instruction in the future. I hope this group has seen that value to all of that and will continue on. So anyways, I know that's very specialized to a city where we have access to that many phys ed teachers, but that's one benefit that I've seen.
Does anyone else want to share what, oh, go ahead.
Yeah, if I could add to that. One positive out of this is the vast amount of links that I discovered doing research for my weekly phys ed newsletters. I've probably got 6 pages on a Word document. I've saved all the links, and they could certainly be used in the gym with a projector if you wanted to use them. So I'm glad I saved them and didn't just use them and forget about them. So that was a positive. And yeah, like Jared said, it was great to be able to share resources too, because that really helped maybe kickstart some of the people in our group if they were having troubles. That was a positive for sure.
Eric, you said that you used a YouTube channel. Was that interesting to set up, or was it something you've done before?
No, it was all, it started out with me filming a daily video and just putting it on our school's Facebook page. And then I realized that not everybody has Facebook. So then a colleague told me I should make a YouTube channel. And so then I would email it to all the families from kindergarten to grade 7 at my school. And, you know, we just did funny little things around the house. Some of them were funny, some of them were, I don't know, lame, whatever, you know, just a way of staying active. And got some pretty good responses. And also a big section of the school probably never even looked at them, but I emailed out the link, you know, every week and stuff. So
Awesome. Thanks, Eric. Anyone else want to share a positive? Lonnie, I know your blog was pretty awesome.
I did the same thing. I made a YouTube channel myself. Response, yeah, probably the same as Eric there. Yeah, being able to use the Facebook page, I found the same thing, Eric. Not everybody is on Facebook, myself included. So I want to be able to see it, that it's actually posted. So did that, kind of moved into a movement challenge, which I had planned anyway, but it was nice to do a virtual type thing, get some feedback from kids and videos from kids that were participating in it. That was a big positive. I also ran a virtual play day, made a video on it, and then made a virtual play day that got a lot of good responses from that too.
Awesome. Thanks, Colin. Okay.
I thought at first I was a bit apprehensive about going online and doing Zoom workouts online. And myself and a colleague, which I worked with Brittany, we had Zoom workouts, which were fantastic. And I think in terms of like physically, it was very good. But oftentimes what I found is students were actually happy to actually socialize and just seeing a teacher's face, and also just other students when in a Zoom setting. So I think that was a success for our school board as well, or for our and for our phys ed department.
I would have to agree with the face and seeing teachers. I know that I did a little pop-in of every one of my teachers' Zoom calls. And so I would just start off with some little physical activity piece, but my teachers would say, when's Mrs. Bittner coming back? Because the kids are asking for you and they don't want to see me anymore. They want to see you. So it was that socialization piece, that familiarity, that the fun aspect of what we get to do every day. And I agree with you. So, so thanks for everyone. Oh, Lyndon.
I just have this is more of kind of a general statement, but it is a positive, I think. Well, it's definitely a positive. I think collectively as a group, we're seeing, kind of just listening to everyone in these, cool, neat ideas. I think physical education has had a tough time adjusting to the incorporation of technology. And I know Jared and I and folks here in Saskatoon have had conversations, dating back 5-6 years ago on how we're going to build the capacity to incorporate tech into PE, and just, listening and observing to the wonderful stories and the cool things that have been happening. I think a positive for me is just to see this kind of transition into our willingness to incorporate tech and different and creative online platforms and learning. And I think it's really thrusted this idea into the fact that we can be creative, and it's forced us outside of our comfort zones, myself included. I wouldn't consider myself overly literate in the ability to have this tech piece. So I think it's really cool for around the province. We're hearing some really neat stories on how we've been able to engage our learners in movement through technology. And I think that's really going to benefit our collective goals moving forward. So I just wanted to just kudos and tip of the cap to everyone who's learned, right? We've all been learning along the way. And I think that's really neat. And I think that's really great for physical education as a whole.
Yes. I don't know how else to respond, but yes, I agree that being adaptable and flexible and creative in what we have come through is, I think, pretty astounding. So, Reg, do you want to speak at all to the, going back to the report card, do you want to speak at all to the report card if anybody hasn't had a chance to, do you want to just give us a little,
Sure.
number 2?
If you haven't had a chance, on the last week, on the 17th, Participaction released the National Physical Education Report Card. So, I guess the lead researcher on that would be Dr. Mark Tremblay, and this report card's been out for a while, 6 years, I think. So, at least 6 years. So I guess the overall grade was a D- in terms of physical education. There also is a breakdown in the document about how different provinces are doing. And in Saskatchewan, we are close to average or above average in many areas. So that is interesting. Not that comparisons between provinces are always a standard, but it does give us a different frame of reference. But the take on it, or the theme this year, is on getting children to play with their parents, and that parent engagement is a big factor in the physical activity levels of kids. So that it's definitely a document that is worth, if you have a chance. I don't want to call it summer reading because it's really quite large, but there is an abbreviated version, a summary. It is worth reading. It makes you think about opportunities that we would have moving forward. I'm always hopeful, so I'm always hopeful, no matter what the grade is. But it does give us a snapshot of where we are as a province and as a country. It may be a little bit interesting too, because the document, I'm sure, would have been finalized before the COVID shutdown. So that theme would have been in place anyway. But it is interesting nonetheless. So worth the read, and then an opportunity to maybe reflect on what things might look like in the fall.
Alex Stoddart from the University of Regina has posted it in the chat. So if you want to click on it and save it on your desktop, then do that. Okay, so number 3 on my agenda is to, Reg, do you want to just quickly chat about PGNs as we get to the hot topics in a minute?
You mean do you want me to reflect on the changes that are coming up with the professional growth networks?
Sure.
Okay. Jen and I attended a meeting, a virtual meeting, a week back, and the Saskatchewan Teachers Federation is looking at making changes to professional growth networks. And of course, SPEA is a professional growth network. But by the fall of basically the gist of it is, the major point is that for the fall of 2021, every teacher in Saskatchewan will be asked to join or to be part of a professional growth network. So so that's a good thing, because the teachers have been asking for that. But there are 28 different professional growth networks in the province. So I don't want to say that it's going to become competitive, but teachers will be asked which of those growth networks do you want to join first? What will be your priority? If they do, each professional growth network will get a base grant of $2,000, which is good, but then $7.50 per teacher that joins, that chooses, say, SPEA as the first group. So if you and that $7.50 then would be paid from the teachers' fees that go to the STF, and the STF would reimburse, say, SPEA. If SPEA is not your first choice, say you become a member of the literacy or math group, then you still can join another group. You can still join another professional growth network, but you would have to pay, well, not pay, but you'd have to abide by, I guess, the fee then for what a membership would cost for another group. So for SPEA, we have a little over a year to think about what that would look like. But of course, wheels were in motion during the meeting, which was just a Zoom call. But you could see everybody's thinking around. There's going to be lots of lobbying around getting people to choose a professional growth network first, because that ultimately will get a higher grant, and that'll be important. So we're pretty confident that our membership currently will probably stay the same, but we would probably want to, I guess our marketing strategy moving into the fall of 2021 will probably be a little different, because we would like as many members as possible, which would be something to think about. So just so you know too, this isn't the STF is not setting this up to make professional growth networks competitive. That is not their intent, even though that may end up that way. The thinking is that one of their major concerns is that say 6 years ago, or even before rural amalgamation, which would be 11 years ago, teachers really felt that they had autonomy to attend professional development that they chose. But that has changed drastically, because right now, most of you probably feel that you don't have as much autonomy to attend what you would like to attend. Your school divisions have been dictating which professional development you would be attending. So as school divisions have taken over that role, less and less teachers have the funding or the resources or the time to, or maybe even the permission to attend external professional development. So it'll be interesting times coming up. They're also asking professional growth networks to all become nonprofits, to have their own board of directors, to follow nonprofit organization guidelines in the province. So SPEA is well ahead of other groups when it comes to those types of things, but there will be some changes coming up. So in the fall, from the STF, just maybe watch, you'll start to see changes moving forward. You'll start to hear media releases or blurbs around how professional growth networks are being handled within the STF. So just watch for that. So.
Awesome. Okay, so let's get to the burning questions of the day. And I don't know if I want to open up I want to open up the floor to talk about some worries about the fall, talk about what maybe your school division has released, talk about what you personally are worried about, or something that maybe you're looking forward to about the fall. So I don't know if, Reg, do you want to speak to the PHE document, or if you want to speak to what has been happening with SPEA and the ministry and that working relationship? maybe I'll just.
Okay. The PHE document, the Return to School, the Health and Physical Education Return to School policy that was released, we were able to, SPEA was able to, I guess, get that document to the response planning team at the provincial level. So all of the stakeholders, which would include the Saskatchewan Teachers Federation, the Saskatchewan School Boards Association, the ministry, including the minister and the deputy minister, everyone had access to that document, or it was on the table, so that as they provided the, I guess, this latest version of what school would look like in the fall, or at least guidelines for that, that document has been involved in the decision making. I can't say how much it's been involved, but we were able to get it to all of those groups, and then to have recognition back from them to say, thanks for sending that to us. We appreciate that, and it'll be part of the decision-making process. So that part has been good. SPEA is still using, it's on our website, but we're using that document from PHE Canada as a foundational document that we will use to provide guidelines for our organization moving forward. Our plan with SPEA is to provide an implementation document, not a policy document, but an implementation document that will come out in early August. The thinking being that lots could still change between now and when school starts in the fall. Some of the other provinces have chosen to do an implementation document as well too. And when I say implementation, it would be ideas around how we could support physical education teachers, like actual ideas, not so much policy, but actual ideas that people could use as we get closer to school. So here would be an example. Some principals right now in the province are timetabling. They've got 3 or 4 different examples or situations of what school might look like in the fall. Other principals are talking to their staff this week saying they're going to hold off and wait. They're going to wait till mid-August, and then they're going to put things together. Some people have already put things together and said had a nice summer, but that just because it's put together doesn't mean that that's going to actually happen in the fall. So some people are just holding off. They've talked to their staffs and said, let's just hold off and wait and see, because so much has changed in Saskatchewan over the last 2 months. What's it going to look like in the next 2 months? Like, does it really make sense to plan that? There's a lot of burnt out people in our province who've been planning, and then everything has changed. So we're hoping to put a plan out later, more around implementation, but then have maybe a better idea of what it would look like. So as an example, what happens, there's many what ifs, but if the Reopen Saskatchewan plan changes, if the Saskatchewan Health Authority changes their guidelines come August, then school's going to look totally different than any planning that would take place now. I think it's okay to have different scenarios in mind, but I'm not so sure if a whole bunch of work needs to go into what that would look like. Sorry, that was a really long answer, but that tends to be kind of where we're at right now.
So does anyone want to speak to what is happening in maybe their own school or in their own school division after what Reg has commented on?
Our principal has decided to wait because, as you say, Reg, things can change and have been changing. So it's a living amoeba we're dealing with right now. It constantly changes. So she's not going to, I think, mid-August, take a look at it. From a personal point of view, the document that came out and reading some other people's opinions on it, I find it fairly reckless in how they think it's going to work, especially for phys ed. And so I wasn't impressed by the government's response to how school opening, what it would look like. That's just my thought about it right now. Things could get a lot worse as far as the COVID-19. It's hard to say. There's second waves happening in Asia already. So who knows? We might be online in the fall again as well. So it's hard to say, but I don't feel totally comfortable with what they put out.
And so I want to throw it out there, I guess, the conversation around making things as normal as possible, however, using nothing to share with. So no sharing of equipment, no extra cur according to the document. What are people's thoughts on equipment and sharing and cleaning of equipment? Because I know in BC, they have gone ahead with the sharing of equipment, and she, one of the ladies that a colleague, I guess you could say, has taken it and just put the spray bottle and the rag by the equipment, and kids are cleaning equipment as they use it. So let's open the floor up to thoughts around equipment, thoughts around cleaning, thoughts around, yeah, sharing. Mel, like I know you work in a gym, or own a gym, what's cleaning and things like that? I know it's not school orientated, but yeah.
Yeah, we've been open for 2 weeks now, and we actually came across a disinfectant that you don't have to wipe. It's a spray and dry, which I think is very effective and would be very effective, especially if you're getting kids to clean their own equipment. So that's something I'm hopefully going to pitch to my admin. Seems to be effective so far. I mean, I personally don't have enough equipment in my gym for everybody to have their own basketball or have their own badminton racket or volleyball. Like I don't have enough stuff for people to not have contact with. So if it's going to games and stuff that have no equipment, that might be what we do. Julie just asked what the name of the disinfectant is. I can't remember offhand, but I can let people know what it is when I find out.
Thanks for sharing, Mel. Anyone else have any thoughts, concerns, comments?
I can go. I have a pretty healthy phys ed budget up here. And so me and my colleague in the school went over what are the individualized equipment that we can kind of hit hard and buy more of with our this year's budget, because we haven't paid for it yet or haven't purchased anything yet. So we're going to be upping our number of badminton rackets, tennis rackets, that kind of stuff, yoga mats. And then we're kind of going to see how it goes for next year. We did have a budget cut for next year's phys ed equipment. We do have still a lot compared to everybody else, I'd say. So we'll kind of judge from there if we did buy the right stuff. And we are going to be buying lots of outdoor ed equipment as well. So snowshoes, as well as camping axes and knives and all that kind of stuff. So we'll see if our guess is going to work out or not.
Awesome, thanks, Julie.
I can just add a little, just to give you some things to think about, but just so 4 days ago, the Toronto Sick Kids Hospital produced a document that came out and said, yeah, school in the fall should look as normal as possible, and it laid a whole bunch of things out as to why that should happen, and it was very supportive of school wide open, just like the provincial government announced. School would be as normal as possible, and what the advantages of that would be. The interesting part, though, with it is that the National Post yesterday put out a rebuttal to that, and just said, "What are you guys thinking? What are you thinking in terms of health standards that have been set up for the rest of the province or the rest of the country, and then now we're looking at." So it's very interesting. So if you read the Sick Kids document, please read the rebuttal from the National Post, which is pretty much amazing, because this is what schools are facing all of the time. So another part about the provincial document is that there has been pressure on school divisions, because the minister did announce that school would be as normal as possible in the fall. So some people took that as that it will be 5 days a week. My kids will be going back to school. Lots of school divisions have put their hands up saying, whoa, that's not what we're looking at, or that we're pretty nervous about that. So, that's, reading both sides of it. So many school divisions have a plan that's sort of temporary. They do need to They do need to put a plan or send a plan to the response planning team or the Ministry of Education by June 30th. So that's why school divisions are, I guess, frantically trying to put a plan together, even though it may not look that way come fall, but something has to be turned in by June the 30th. So the other paragraph that's worth reading for everybody in the provincial document from the government is the one around extracurricular. And it basically says it's 4 sentences, and it just basically says that the government will not, the Ministry of Education will not make any decisions around extracurricular until the fall, until stage 4, until more announcements have been made around the reopen plan. So I know right now many people are really anxious around extracurricular sport and what that will look like. The SHSAA has their general meeting on Thursday, but the government has been very sort of adamant around they're going to leave that to the fall. So I know people are planning or thinking around that, and every sport governing body has a plan as to what their sport would look like, which does have an impact on physical education as well in terms of what we do. But the government itself has said there isn't a decision on that. So that's the document that school divisions are following. So it may not always be your school division that is against something. They have to follow the guidelines as set down by first of all, by the ministry, and then also by the Saskatchewan Health Authority. So just some background on that.
Anyone have any comments about extracurricular or concerns? You're right, Eric. I think he just commented about this CIS being canceled. So how can schools participate? And I think, Eric, my comment would be that CIS travels way farther. And I understand that our schools, rural schools travel, but yeah, I wonder what September brings, I guess, is that. Reg, does SAA have any comment about sports, or do you know anything that'll be released on Thursday?
I think in terms of Thursday, they will follow, right now they have to follow the provincial guideline that has been set out. So that paragraph is pretty impactful for them. They will have, I think what they'll announce maybe on Thursday or throughout the summer would be sort of contingency plans, especially around fall sports. So as an example, one idea that's been floated is that the football season may be run in the spring rather than in the fall. Is there a possibility that track and field could be run in the fall rather than the spring? So the change of seasons is being looked at. They're looking at everything, and then, like I said, every sport governing body in the province, you can go to any sport just and look at their provincial association, and they already have a plan of what their sport would look like moving forward, whether it's in school or in the community. So those are out there. It's also interesting, you go to Alberta, and right now they are playing everything. So baseball, softball is a complete go. Saskatchewan is different. Manitoba, everybody's got a different rule. So, or a different way of looking at it. So, not saying one is better than the other, but the SHSA is very well aware of that. Here's a major concern though for school divisions. If there are major modifications made at the school level, how can they possibly run extracurricular sport? That's their concern. So, but here's another question. If there is social distancing when you leave school and go to Canadian Tire or go to a restaurant, and yet there's no social distancing at the school level, how does that fit? Or if you have to wear masks as a worker in a certain public location, and yet teachers aren't wearing any protective equipment in the fall. Just things like that are very, those are the questions that are crossing my desk or being asked, and I don't have an answer, but they are very interesting. It's an interesting way of looking at it as well too. So I think we have not heard as much from the Saskatchewan Teachers Federation around the expectations for teachers in the fall, and that I'm assuming that will come out as well too. That's a variable that all of us will need to be aware of or follow.
One thing that I'm keeping an eye on, there's been different or newer information saying that the spread of the disease based on touch or on physical surfaces is they're realizing, at least one report I saw, is not spreading it as much as they, I think, first initially thought. So it'll be interesting to see as this proceeds and the data comes out, the scientific data comes out as far as how that will, if that is true, or if they'll get some studies that will confirm that. So I think that will have a major impact on us.
I know that the band teacher at my school was talking about how her band program can keep on because the virus doesn't spread through blowing the air through the instrument. The virus doesn't continue on. So she's all excited that she can continue on with her program. So that was her big hurrah hurrah yesterday in staff meeting. So anyone else?
I think another point, Jen, is that we all have to remember that just because we're allowed to do something at a political or other level doesn't necessarily mean that it's best for our schools and kids or families. One major concern that a lot of senior officials in, like at school divisions, a lot of directors of education they're concerned about what school will look like. But school divisions are very concerned about what happens if somebody's grandfather or grandmother becomes infected and the virus came from school. Once we open schools, there's also a connection to a whole bunch of people that aren't in schools. So that is a major concern that doesn't get announced very much, but it's a big one. It's a big one because ultimately, too, another rise in the province is that, especially rural-wise, is that many grandparents now are taking over sort of the babysitting or sort of parenting duties as parents go back to work. So grandparents have stepped up, but they're also the most vulnerable. So that is a big concern. So maybe, I know certain areas are focusing so much on a very narrow focus at school, or in their communities, but that if it branches out and affects the most vulnerable who indirectly aren't at school but are a part of our system, that is a big concern. So another point too, I just don't want to forget it, so I apologize for still talking, but another thing that has come up in the province is that some provinces have, in order to decrease the pupil-teacher ratio, have asked their phys ed teachers to become homeroom teachers. So they've lowered the number of kids. Everybody is basically a good soldier on staff. So it hasn't been an anti-physical education approach, but they took all specialists, all anybody that was student support teachers, math specialists, so on. They took their teachers and they've lowered the pupil-teacher ratio, made a smaller pod, I guess, for teachers to work with, and then have gone a cross-curricular approach, especially in K-8. So some provinces have taken that as, well, that's an anti-physical education or physical activity approach. Those school divisions have said, I don't know what other options we have in terms of trying to lower the pupil-teacher ratio if kids are being asked to come to school. The difference for us in Saskatchewan is that the only difference between now and in the fall is that it will be mandatory for kids to attend school in the fall. That's different than now. So we will see an uptake no matter what parents decide, but there will be an uptake in students at school. And of course, that's why school divisions have had to look at lowering the pupil-teacher ratio and what that might look like. So I'm not a proponent of necessarily of that, but I just wanted to share it today at our meeting, just to know that other provinces are doing that. I think New Brunswick has officially done it now throughout the whole province in the fall. So all their teachers know that they're going to have a small group of children in the fall and they need to be cross-curricular. So
I'll speak to that, Reg. So just so people know that, so there's a French school division and then there's an English school division in New Brunswick. The English School Division has gone K-2 as a cap size of 15 plus or minus 2, so they can see up to 17 kids from K-2. And then grades 3 to 8 have gone back to a normal classroom setting of whatever their normal class size is. The French side of New Brunswick has said K-5, a cap of 15. They have pulled all phys ed and all arts ed teachers and put them into a classroom. And a lot of teachers are upset because some of them have been teaching phys ed for 20, 25 years and now are going to be placed in a classroom. And so they're short teachers because they have an influx of now classrooms. And now they're going to see another shortage of teachers because some teachers are going on leave because they are feeling uncomfortable going back into a classroom setting. So that's one situation. Ontario is another situation. Now, Ellen, I don't know if you can speak to this, but it's K-3, I believe, in Ontario that has gone kindergarten to grade 3 at a cap size of 15. But they're going to be included as a bubble. So that family, that 15 and the teacher are going to stay together, eat together, play together, but they don't have to worry about social distancing because that's their little family. So kind of close the door and be and learn together for that day. My question or my comment would be is that my colleague has 5 people all at different schools. So 15 kids here, 15 kids here, 15 kids here, 15 kids here, 15 kids here. 2 of them are teachers, 3 different schools. That's a whole bunch. Oh, good. That's a whole bunch of people being exposed and coming back to one household where grandparents are immune compromised. I see Lisa from BC is joining us. So maybe Lisa, who is, good morning, Lisa. Not to put you on the spot, where we're just talking about returning to school and what that looks like and capping class size. And I know that you've been back teaching since June 1st, right? And you haven't had a full load, right? Your students have chosen, some families have chosen not to come back. Lisa teaches in Squamish, right?
Right.
And so tell me about life in BC and tell me what you're experiencing being back and how families are and how students are and equipment, cleaning of equipment. I saw that you did a field day and you had spray bottles out and talk.
Okay, so our essential service working children have been back since almost like all of May, I'd say. So they were at a school. Parents could choose to send their essential service tier 1 children back to school there. Most of the TOCs ran that versus full-time teachers because the full-time teachers were doing their online learning. Then the last week of May, the essential service worker children went back to their home schools. So I was in charge of those kids for a week, and it was quite interesting because their space bubbles, they'd kind of lost them being back at school. So I had to reinitiate Eagle Wingspan distancing, and they learned what the word sibling was, because I was like, if it's your sibling, you can be close, otherwise. And I actually taped places to sit on tables for them, and we did a COVID journal. They continued their online classwork. We spent a lot of time outside playing, but our school's also under construction, so we didn't really have the availability of any blacktop to do blacktop games. And then June 1st, the children could choose to come back to school, and the numbers have grown steadily every week because some parents chose not to. The way my school district did it versus different school districts, we chose to have at elementary school A to L come Monday and Thursdays, and then M to Z on Tuesday, Fridays, with Wednesday as an online learning day. And on the online learning day, the essential service worker children could still come to school. And so they would be with me. And that was kind of the tricky part, is that although we broke the kids up, essential service working children could come to school 5 days a week. So that was a little bit tricky for the teachers as well, because a lot of times the teachers planned a Monday, Tuesday, like a group A, group B lesson. and then a group A, group B lesson, but they had kids there continually. As far as I took them in the gym, some districts have shut gyms down because I thought, well, 5 kids in a class, why can't you have 5 kids in a gym? And all of our protocols here have been when you enter the school, like when students enter the school, too bad I could walk outside, but we had signposts out with each teacher's name, and the children had to line up outside at their signpost. And then we had a schedule of bringing classes into the gym, into the school, so there was minimal contact with other groups. So we actually used radios when we were bringing them into the school. Some schools have just lined the classes up out on the field, and just, you know, Division 1 goes in, 2 goes in, 3 goes in. So each place has kind of come up with their own things. As far as phys ed, I would just pop in and take kids to the gym, or I would do stuff outside with them. What I found was, I thought, you know, sports day, we all love sports day, but we're not really to have that many kids around. So I decided to organize, I called it physical activity on the field day. And some kids are like, is this sports day? And I'm like, totally not sports day. We don't have the whole school. And there's no concession stand. So it can't be sports day with no concession stands. I made a schedule of the teachers could sign up. So we started off with kind of 2 classes, one starting at station 1 and one starting at station 5. And then they would rotate through the class, through the stations. And it took about 30 minutes to get through the stations. We did things like beanbag on head walk, beanbag toss. I had enough beanbags so that there was enough beanbags for every child to have 1 beanbag. So we never had to double up on beanbags. So then I didn't have to deal with cleaning those. Obstacle course, no touching of equipment there. We had soccer bowling, and it was really great because one of our essential service kids, he spent a lot of time figuring it out, what type of pins, how to make the pins stand up. So he used little dome markers, and he placed the pins inside the dome markers, and it was like an inquiry half a day for him to figure out how to do it. So he was really excited that he made a station. And then we also had a spray bottle there, because when the kids knocked the pins down, you know, we'd pick them up. And then we'd spray them down after every class came. Then we had a running station, which was okay. They really didn't care. And then we had a Frisbee golf station. So it was like a one-way Frisbee golf station. At the end, I would spray the Frisbees down, and then we had enough so that, you know, one group could go. I could spray the Frisbees down, bring them back while a second group was going. Penguin walk. I didn't really clean the balls too often for that. They just put them between their knees and jumped up and down, back and forth. And then we did a long jump, and everybody was really happy and had a lot of fun. We have a forest at our school, so we play a lot of eagle eye. We've been told not to play games like soccer where there's contact involved, although some places now, like sports, there's a return to sports. So it looks like some places are doing more soccer type skills and things like that. We were told we could use badminton rackets, which I found a bit odd. And you just had to spray those down. I created my ball wash, which was a Rubbermaid with bleach water, and then I just had a rack that I placed the balls on to dry with cardboard underneath, and I would dip skipping ropes in it. So I decided to every class got skipping ropes in the whole school, and that way every child had their own skipping rope, and I thought we could do skipping routines. So that's where we started out. As things changed, like the intermediate classes, I think they were going to try volleyball, because our deal is that you enter the school, you wash your hands, you come to the gym, you wash your hands on the way to the gym, you wash your hands on the way out of the gym, you wash your hands on the way to the, out for short recess. Every transition point, you wash your hands. Our playgrounds have been open here. So that's what it looks like in an elementary school. And the kids have been going 50%. My school had the highest return to school rate. So we had about a 71% return to school rate between the group A and group B. So in some instances that meant 12 to 14 kids per class. And so the spacing was a bit tricky trying to get the 2 meters. But our province changed our wording from physical distancing to reduce physical contact. And that meant that teachers could get within the 2-meter bubble of kids. Kids could be within the 2-meter bubble of each other. But I still was trying to maintain equal wingspan. So that's how you could get more kids. High school students, so grades 6 to 12, they only had to go to school 1 day a week if they wanted to go to school, because online learning continued. So there, a lot of places, the 1 day of school became more like a study block and a help center. My son's high school, they would go to their career life education teacher, which is a class, and then from there they could go off to their classes. Because there's a downtown school, they were actually almost locked in their school. They were told if they left the premises, like left the school building, they wouldn't be let back in. Middle school, my daughter's school, those kids went back 1 day a week as well. Students with special needs or behavior or learning disabilities, they had the option of coming back 5 days a week for support. So my daughter has a learning disability and she's dyslexic, so she goes to school 4 days a week. So we provided a lot of options. We don't actually know what the fall is going to look like yet. It could be a combination again. It could be back full time. So we're not sure. And I should turn around my camera, but if you look around here, here's the gym right now. And what we have bags all over the gym. So right now, all the teachers have bagged up the students' equipment. And if the kids didn't come back to school, then now we've got time and the parents can come and pick up their students' report cards and their school supplies in our gym right now. And they'll also be dropping off their technology, because we lent out our school's technology to the families. So that's kind of where we're at right now. And my big thing is that think about what you do, like you're already doing, and how you can modify it. Because we can do a lot of stuff still. And there we have it from BC.
Thanks, Lisa. I feel like you gave us a real good perspective on how we can do it, and how, like, Jared, your comment about being adaptable and creative, and I think that it can be done, and I think that you're showing us that it can be done. So yeah, so thanks for all your great insight. My question to Reg is, has anything come out about recess? And yeah, I'll start there with recess. Do you know if anything's been talked about?
Well, right now, from the provincial government perspective, recess would be a go, because the playgrounds have just been open, so kids can play on playground equipment in Saskatchewan, starting, I think it was starting Monday. So again, there's the encouraging of the social distancing piece, and they're talking about in the response planning team, their thing is staggered recesses, so having less kids outside, and then but still making sure that recess is a big part of the day. So just 2 points to that, though. I know I'm just going to speak as a parent, or maybe just past experience, but if schools go to smaller pods, I'd want my child to be with the physical education teacher. So I think that would be a good deal. I know that if I was put in that position and was teaching, I think the kids would get lots of physical education. So not any different than when I was a principal, but I think that's really important. And I think the other part is, Cole and I have had some good discussions around this, but it's ultimately in the fall. No matter what platform is being used, it still comes down to the relationship between the teacher and the students, no matter what that looks like. So really good teachers still establish that personal relationship, that affective domain with their kids. And ultimately in education, that's still the biggest factor in terms of success. Placing children with caring adults who care about them, no matter what the subject is or no matter what the platform is, that's really, really huge. So I will applaud physical educators for that, because I really think as a profession, or within the profession, physical education teachers have really great relationships with their kids. So, and I think that will continue no matter what the platform is or no matter how schools will look like. But I think we need to hang on to that, because there's been so many good things that have come out of this environment, and we don't know what the future will hold. But I just know that, I know as a parent, if I would want my child with somebody that really cared about them, and everything else I think will fall into place. And I just really believe in that, and I think that's a great opportunity for us. But I think physical educators do a great job at that.
I couldn't agree more. Does anyone have? Yeah. Oh,
Yeah, if I could add to that, as far as recess goes, my principal had said that they were talking about at admin meetings that maybe recess, if it was staggered recess, the phys ed teacher could take the staggered recess kids out, and that would kind of be their phys ed. So it might be shorter times with the students, but if you take every class out for 20 minutes or 25, that would be their phys ed time, but you would be the only teacher out supervising phys ed / recess. So that's another way of keeping specialists in their role, I suppose. So that's an idea.
Jen, sorry, Reg. You mentioned in I think Quebec and Ontario that they've reduced the class sizes. How do they, or have you heard, how do they logistically do that as far as space? Do you know any information? Because I think, I always think from my perspective, we have 850 kids in our building. So with K to 3, like that's almost 12 classes. If like that, we don't currently have the space in order to create those classrooms, even if we did use the gym or other spaces in the school. So I'm just wondering if how did they come up with that, or if you've heard anything from that?
So I can only speak to the New Brunswick English side of things.
Oh, yeah.
And they have K to 5 school, and then they have a 6 to 8 school, and then they have a high school. And what the president of New Brunswick had made the comment was that they are bumping all the students. So the school will now be K to 3 instead of K to 5. And then those 4 5s are going to be bumped up to the 6 to 8 schools. And then the 6 to 8s will have that reverse effect on the high schools, and they'll bump some of the high school kids out of their classroom. So it's kind of like a trickle effect. And so that's the only way that they can do it, is that they're a little bit smaller of a province, smaller schools. Yeah, so I can only speak to that. Reg or Cole, can you speak to any of the smaller class sizes and space issues?
I guess, Jared, what's happened is that's why in Saskatchewan, every school division had to submit to the ministry the square footage of their schools in order to try to look at that. So that's interesting. Another part, again, it wasn't meant to be anti-physical education, but most of the largest square footage areas in a school revolve around the gym, not in other areas, not the classrooms all the time. So that's why some schools are using the gymnasiums as instructional, I guess, pod areas for instruction, and then trying to utilize, I guess, outside spaces and so on. So I guess that's where a shift on that has come. Some school divisions, even within our province, are looking at alternating days or going to a 4-day week, trying to minimize the number of kids that would come on certain days, just like Lisa talked about in terms of alphabetically and so on. So there's been that discussion. But again, if you go to alternate days, then what about childcare, and what does that look like? So there's an indirect spin-off there. So another concern that's crossed my desk in Saskatchewan is this all might look good in September and October, but what starts to happen when winter comes? Is that going to change the direction of what we do? So again, too, and I agree. I think the activities would change, but winter has an effect on schools on a normal year, yet alone in the situation that we're currently in. So,
well, I can speak to that. Like, we don't have enough gym space to offer the required amount of phys ed in a regular year without COVID. And you saw those teachers who had to take their phys ed classes outside, they never did, right, in those times. So there needs to be either some very, I guess, pointed clarity from the division level saying that that's not an option, or you know, money spent on PD to train these people to figure out and how does that work? Like, it's yeah, that's the piece that I worry about, is that our kids are going to receive a lot less phys ed because we don't have the physical space in order to run the program, especially come November, December in our winter months.
that's a good point, Jared. And another thing that's happening in Saskatchewan is some school divisions have been looking at taking their physical education classes into the community, like using the rink, using the hall, using the local gym, and so on. It's just not equitable in the province. Yeah, it's going to cost money, right? And it puts the private, I guess, the community or municipality. There's liability issues. There's, you know, and so school divisions are just a little hesitant about that. So yeah, they're looking at spaces in their communities, but what might work in one community in Saskatchewan may not be realistic at all in another community. So, and you're right, in the city, using those different venues tends to cost a lot more money to get kids to go there. But then there's also the travel to and from those places. Like, there's lots of issues. So again, what might happen, what might work in Esterhazy may be totally unrealistic in Watrous. So yeah.
Yeah, like to take a class somewhere in the city, we're looking at $200 potentially, or $100 for every bus ride they have to go for one
Well,
class.
and then Jared, and then we also have to worry about transportation. Did the ministry did they release any documents about transportation and school buses?
A little bit, you know, like, I guess right now the kids rural-wise will be able to ride the bus. There must be an assigned seating. Family members must sit together. They'll be changing some routes to accommodate that. But can you imagine the logistics now if they go to alternating days? Because you've got family members going to different schools. It's not simple. Nothing's simple. So
Maybe that's why they went this route of leaving it open, because it's simple.
well, ultimately they're going to, you know, they want to provide autonomy for school divisions to make decisions, right? But school divisions are really struggling to make those decisions that will work, right? And the other part too, Jared, is lots of people are, and I have to change my thought process on this too, but we're trying to solve problems with the thinking that got us into trouble in the first place. So we're all hoping school will look the same as what we've been used to for so long. And yet the reality may be, maybe we're not thinking properly around that. And that, I'm not saying that's just us, but as a collective group in education, there's some concerns around that. It's very easy for the government to say, go back to school and we'll get it as normal as possible. It's not normal as possible. So.
Thanks, Reg. Thanks, Jared. That's interesting, Eric. So lots of documents posted in the chat. So make sure, like, I know Ellen has posted a few about Ontario, and make sure that the chat will be available after as well. Reg, do you have any last minute things before we wrap up and send everybody on their way?
No, thank you for coming this morning and participating. This has been awesome. Please watch for our implementation plan, I guess, from SPEA moving forward. You can always contact me at the office or any of our board members. We'd love to talk physical education and what the future might look like. And that would be awesome. And then maybe on a final note, ultimately it's going to be summer holidays right away here. So I want to wish everyone I'm going to say a really great July, because I think you can get away from it in July, but I think in August, I think everybody's going to be doing lots of thinking in August. But I really think as a collective group, maybe getting away for the next month here, just away from school and having a chance to recharge. I hope that you have a chance to recharge as we get ready for what's going to be happening in the fall. So having a great summer is a big one. So thank you for today.
So I'll thank again my board members for coming out and supporting this discussion, and thank Ellen from PHE Canada for hosting the call for us. And thanks to each and every one of you for coming out and contributing and listening. And hopefully that our document in August will lead you in the right direction and support you in whatever your school division throws at you. So have a great summer again, and take care, stay well, stay happy, stay healthy, all those good things. And thanks to Lisa for her contribution this morning. Great to see you.
Thanks, everyone. Take care.
Thank you for having me.
Thanks for coming.
Good luck with the planning.
Thanks. We'll need it.